where we have to sit down and discuss detail about the legal agreement around this project. And that is where we'll ask you to give your consent or not to disclose. So this is very important. Second document is the aide-memoire of missions, of operations. Aide-memoire is what we is a document that will capture the discussions that the bank will have with the government on a specific project. You know, it's a document that we prepare jointly with the with the government, which will say, okay, we come to this country this date, we met this person, we discussed this project, these are the components of the project, these are the costs of the project, this is how we're going to implement the project, this is who will implement the project, and this is, the beneficiaries are so, and the output, of course. So that document is what we call a deliberative document, is considered confidential because we have all these details in there, So the old policy protect that type of document. So does the new one as well. So here, the new policy also recognizes that it's very sensitive as a document. So therefore, it's not a document that will automatically be released in the public domain. Now, the option is, since we want to, yesterday we talked to you about maximum disclosure. The whole point of disclosing aide-memoire is that we want the public to know what the government is discussing with the bank at the planning level, not when the project is, going to be implemented. As soon as we start discussing projects with the bank, with the country, we have opportunity to inform the public that this is what we are discussing with ex-government for this type of project in this area. It's very important. So we give 3 options to government here. Since we recognize that it's a sensitive information, but we are at the same time encouraging disclosure. So government has 3 options. First, they can consent. They say, okay, fine, we have no problem. We are open in our own country anyway. So I tell my people what I do, and particularly what I do with public money. So go ahead and disclose the aide-memoire. I have no objection. If they say yes, first option, we'll make it public. We disclose it on our website. So any one of you can have access to the aide-memoire and read exactly what AfDB is planning to do with the government in a particular region or a particular project, well in advance. So we are talking about 7 months before the project is approved by the board of directors. So it's well in advance so that you're aware of what is going on in your country and what the donors, the MDBs like AfDB, are doing in your country. That's very important. Second option is they can say, oh no, this is very confidential, but since I'm also open in my country, let me make sure that you don't disclose certain things that are sensitive. But some of this information is fine. Tell them we are planning to do roads in this region, and that road will be X number of kilometers, and it will, go through this area, whatever. That one, I don't have a problem. But don't tell them about X and Y and Z. So if that's the case, the bank will take note, and we will, together with the government, agree on a version to be disclosed. A version to be disclosed. That's partial disclosure. So we'll remove sensitive information that the government deems sensitive. We'll remove them. That will keep, but the one to be disclosed will be the partial one, at least to give information to people. That's very important. That's what we call a redacted version. Will be on the website. And we'll put a disclaimer there that this is a redacted version, so you know that it's not a full one. And we'll tell you that if you ask us the full one, we cannot disclose because it's a confidential. But at least you have half of it. Now, the third option is the government say, okay, no, this is all too sensitive. We don't want, at this stage, this document to be public. We are still discussing. Please keep it between us. This is the view of the government. We'll respect that. We will not disclose it. That's what we'll label this document strictly confidential, because you remember in the beginning, by nature, aide-memoire is a confidential information. So the option are given to the government. Our hope is we will stay in the first option. That's our hope. And the worst case for us is we stay in the second option. So the third, we don't hope to get into the third option, but of course, it's up to government. Government, will decide what to do. So that's it for aide memoir. So start looking out for this type of information on our website, you know, also, so maybe you will be lucky, so you get some of them published. Now, country strategy paper. This is the document that, you know, determine the type of engagement the bank wants to have with a specific country in a specific period of time. You know, this is the first part of our engagement with the country. We'll go there and determine what it is that we want to do in this sector, infrastructure, you know, it can be governance, it can be a private sector, it can be public reform, public sector reforms, it can be anything. So we'll agree with the document, with the government for about 3 or 5 years of what we want to do. This document normally is subject to public consultation. So we talked about it yesterday, that when we are doing a country strategy paper, it's open to civil society members, it's open to all the stakeholders in the country to discuss and weigh in. So that process has already been very inclusive. The only thing new here, just like in the case of appraisal reports, is that the bank say, okay, why don't we try to make this document available to the public ahead of the approval by the board of directors? You know, early disclosure, early. Because in any case, this document has already been more or less discussed by the civil society, you know, stakeholders and the government and private sector. Everybody contributes to this one. So the only thing new here is we want to give them the option, or we encourage them to agree to release this document earlier on. So that's why we also have 2 options. They consent. If they consent to that, according to the new policy, we will make it available simultaneously. So at the same time, it's being discussed at the board, or distributed to the board. And if they say no, fine, we will wait until the board of directors has approved the document, and we'll make it public, because this is a public document by nature. It's never a confidential document in the bank, it's always a public document. So that's the thing. Now, the best part is this one. Annual audited financial statement. I think yesterday someone raised this issue, you know, how do we track the usage of public fund and things like that in the project funded by AfDB with the government and all that. Now, that also has been taken care of in the new policy. You recall, this is the first time that we'll be doing this. Normally, audited financial statements are confidential. Up until now, I'm not sure you can find anything like this on the bank website. No. But since February this year, in the new policy, it now has become possible to see this type of document in the public. But again here, there are 2 options. Because we are partners with government. So government, you know, always have to seek the consent of the government to do whatever we do. This is the nature of the operations. Public institutions set up by government, working for them, but at the same time, we also have certain principles, but we still have to consult with the government. Give them 2 options here. One is to consent to disclose the full audited financial statement, the full. If they, just like the auditor will submit to the government doesn't touch that document, they will transmit it to the bank immediately to know how the account has been managed and all that. If they consent to the full, we'll make the full report on the website, available on the website immediately after we receive it. Now, since we're talking about audit financial statement, there may be the case that the government will deem certain information very sensitive in the report. So if that's the case, they have to tell us, okay, I agree, because this is your rules, I sign up to this, it's in the loan agreement and all that, but there are certain sensitive information, so please, let's make sure that we don't reveal those confidential information to the public at the same time that we are disclosing this information. So we can go for what we call a redacted version, just like in the case of aide memoir, remember? So the redacted version will say, okay, this is a financial statement, we may take out 1 or 2 things, but still the bank needs to approve that redacted version so that it's not an empty document which doesn't say much. It still have to say something meaningful to the public in terms of audit. So we'll have to make sure that it's acceptable to the bank. And once we get that, we release that redacted version and keep the full version with the bank as confidential information. So in any case, you will have to see a full or partial audited financial statement on the bank website for the project that approved since February 2013. That we must be very careful about that. Only projects that are approved since February 2013 this year, because that's when the policy became effective. The old projects are not concerned. That can only be made available if the government wants to. They are not obliged because they were operating under the old policy. But a new one, since February this year, actually has this provision. So this is very important information, and you will be consulted by the bank on this one when they come to mission, or where you are negotiating a loan with the bank, or when you are signing, loan agreement or aide memoire. So we just want to bring this to your attention that don't be surprised when they're asking you this type of information. The policy is on the website, and I know that some communication are going on with the Minister of Finance and Planning and all that about this, so that you know the provision of this type of information. So I think this is what we wanted to share with you. This is just to tell you that a third-party document, sometimes government will give document to the bank as a way, as a part of doing business with the bank. So those documents, some of them may be subject to disclosure, depends if the government allow for it, we will disclose. If not, we will, seek your consent, say, can we disclose this information? If the answer is no, we keep it. If it's yes, we disclose it. So we kind of respect the confidentiality that the third party will give to the bank. So on those one, we are very flexible in terms of a third party document. So this is the end of our presentation. This is the last slide, just to tell you that this is the kind of test that you will be seeing in the aide memoire, that you say X country agrees to make the document available to the public at the same time, distribute to the board of directors. So this is a kind of a disclaimer that you'll be seeing on those type of documents on our website, so that you know that this has been discussed with the government before, and we got a government consent or no consent. Whichever way it is, we have to put it in writing. And the same on this one as a disclaimer on some of the documents to be found on the website. And that's the end of the presentation. So this is some key new changes that you'll be seeing in the way that we are doing business with you. So don't be surprised when you see someone, project team arriving on mission and talk about these type of things. So we just want you to be aware of it. And then these are the responsibilities on the part of government to give consent to this type of thing. So that's what we wanted to share with you. Thank you very much. So let's have some few reaction on this, and then thank you.
Thank you very much for the short but brilliant presentation. Just a quick question on the aide memoire, the disclosure of the aide memoire. Are we talking about supervision aide memoirs? That is, anytime the mission comes on supervision, project implementation supervision, we sign aide memoire at the end of the mission. Is that what we are referring to? Then secondly, I want to know why most times before this time when we sign aide memoire with the bank representative, that is the team of the leader of the mission we signed, then government representative, either the alternate or whoever, the governor or his alternate, will sign the aide memoire. But there's a clause there always you put that this aide memoire is subject to the approval of the bank, even though when both parties have signed. I want explanation to that. Thank you.
Can I? Oh,
Sure, go ahead.
well, thank you very much. First of all, let me preface my comment by saying that this presentation is just for our information. and not probably to change the status quo, because it appears to me that it is post-ante, as it has already been adopted as part of the 2013 and 2023 strategy of the bank. So we cannot change it. But I think that in keeping with the new bank policy for, access to information and, disclosure, I think it should have been incumbent for certain aspects of the, particularly the aspects of the aid memoir that is reached by both parties, to be published, notwithstanding the agreement of government. I am of the view that we have to begin to emphasize the need for disclosure and not giving options to government as to whether they disclose or not. I think that's an aspect you would have to look at some subsequent arrangements.
Thank you very much. I've issued a little bit with the aid memoir, especially prior to the project's appraisal report coming. The problem is that we are now discussing a project. Even if it hasn't gone to your board, it hasn't gone to our government, we do not know whether it will be something which will be approved. Now you disclose this, you start whetting the appetite of people who are supposed to maybe benefit from that. Before you realize, one side maybe have difficulty and it's not approved. How do you go back to wind the appetite to have whipped? And then these things, the feedback will be on the government, and the government will suffer for that. I think if your board is the final approver, then let them approve it. Then disclose. That's why everybody knows that their project is going to be done. But the situation where it reaches a point and about, like Guinea-Bissau, because of a coup, nothing is happening. Then pressure is on the government. So for political expediency, I think, well, you give us room to say we agree or not. But we don't want a situation where we seem to be always saying no consent, no consent. That doesn't bring the partnership as we all expect. We not against disclosure, if you heard what I said. But disclosure to that high level is not an issue. Disclosure to the bottom, the voters, is where we worry. And if you cannot get the votes, we are in trouble. We can't have the power to even deliberate with you. So, to some extent, I think the aid memoirs, especially at the level, if it is project implementation, supervision, aid memoir, and the project is not doing well, you are telling us, you have to tell the public. We are not worried. But the initial appraisal type of this thing, we have to be careful. And we don't want that situation where we always say no consent. I also had a small problem with the audited accounts. In Ghana here, the audit report is supposed to be disclosed officially at the Parliament for the Parliamentary Account Committee to discuss it. That is when it starts becoming public. They may sometimes, I don't think you can get it from the audit website prior to the PAC. Now you go and disclose it, and auditors, the Parliamentary Committee seems that you frown over a law in the country. What do we do? And we would have given the consent anyway, and because of that, you put us into some corner. So I don't know whether country laws have any effect on some of these your new directives.
Yes, but Sorry, just to add a voice to that, I think, which is why, the bank is now asking the consent of the government as to whether to disclose or not. Because in such circumstances, definitely a country would say, no, our laws forbid, such disclosures until, the parliament has been able to look into those accounts before you can disclose them. So I think that is why it is important for audited accounts for government to give its consent as to whether to go ahead with the disclosure or not. We also have a similar situation in Sierra Leone. There is a standing order they call SO 54, Standing Order 54, which forbids the disclosure of financial statements that are produced by the Auditor General until it is the Public Accounts Committee gives approval in Parliament for that to be done. So you see, it is common in most of our countries, and which is why it's important that on that aspect, particularly on public accounts, that are audited, it is important that government gives its approval as to whether we proceed with disclosure.
Okay.
Ok, merci. Donc, par rapport à la publication des rapports d'audit et des aides-mémoires, donc, pour les aides-mémoires, je préfère que, comme l'a dit monsieur du Ghana, vraiment, il faut que le projet soit en route pour qu'il puisse être publié. Et par rapport au rapport d'audit, je souhaite que les rapports d'audit soient d'abord approuvés, puisqu'il faut que la banque approuve le rapport d'audit pour qu'il y ait un décaissement du second fonds de roulement. Il y a un petit problème qu'on avait eu, c'est par rapport à un projet où un comptable avait quitté et celui qui l'avait remplacé, il n'y avait pas eu de passation. Donc, il y avait des pièces que le second n'avait pas enregistrées. Et quand le rapport d'audit était sorti, il manqué des millions. Maintenant, moi, je partais dans le ministère technique, on me dit, ah, il paraît qu'on a mangé de l'argent des millions. J'ai dit non, qui a mangé les millions? Tôt, les gens ont mangé. Les gens ont mangé, ils veulent savoir qui ont mangé. Donc, pour des situations comme ça, vraiment, il faut que la banque approuve le rapport d'audit avant qu'il soit publié. Moi, c'est ce que je souhaite, vraiment.
Thank you very much. I think these new innovations are all aimed at efficiency on the side of the project implementation unit and also on the side of the bank in its supervisions. But my own concern is the room given for consent or no consent. How long does the bank give to the country concerned as to decide either to give consent or no? Because if there's no timeline, then that document remains there without a decision taken, and the information is not disclosed, and the public begins to ask questions. So are there timelines for this? And then the other issue is also on the appraisal reports. The appraisal reports you are referring to here, are they the one before the project is approved, or the ones on supervision mission, or both? Because like my colleague said, the one before the project is approved is a document which everybody wants to see its approval made. And both the politicians and even the rural communities or the urban communities where the project will be sited are eager to get the project done. And so if at a time it is sent to the board and simultaneously also disclosed and issues arise and it is delayed, the politicians will not be happy with the bank because they have their own timelines. You know, each party or each government has its own limited time, and they will want this project executed during their own tenure. And if a situation comes in which a civil society organization or a community says this project does not reach my own end and therefore will not accept it and so on and so forth, or even the opposition in the political party could come up and say, no, we don't want this project and so on and so forth. And you find out that the political party in government is delusioned, and I don't know how the bank will handle that. So I want you to be very, very careful in that area and ensure that the board approves the appraisal if it is the one for approval for the implementation of the project. But if it is for the usual supervision missions, I think there's no objection because the communities and everybody need to know what the PIU is doing, except the PIU is saying it's not doing its own work, and we want to hide some fault in one way or the other. After all, if like for engineering project, they are not hidden. The community sees if the road is there and you are doing it, they will know. And so if a supervision mission comes and the work is not well done, there's no way you can hide it. And whether you disclose the aid memo or not, the public knows what you are doing. So in that case, I don't think there's any problem. But my own issue is the first one. Thank you.
Okay.
Merci pour cette présentation. Hier, j'ai eu à poser la même préoccupation. Je disais que l'information, quand elle est donnée, quand elle est bien donnée, c'est un moyen de développement. Mais quand elle est mal donnée, aussi, c'est vraiment des problèmes qui seront posés. On va encore chercher à les résoudre. Moi, je voudrais savoir, au cas où les différents documents présentés ici, si la banque publie un document et qu'après la publication, vient la version finale qui sera approuvée de part et d'autre, et qu'on trouve qu'il y a une différence entre les deux publications, qu'est-ce que la banque fait pour corriger le tir qui est déjà parti? Parce que ça va trouver que le document a été lu par des milliers de personnes et encore ils vont voir une autre version du même document, une autre version du même document. Qu'est-ce que la banque va faire dans ce cas? Merci.
Merci. Et moi, ma préoccupation, elle est relative comment dirais-je là, à la diffusion des documents. Aujourd'hui, effectivement, vous dites que vous donnez la latitude au gouvernement d'accepter ou de ne pas accepter la publication des documents, mais je me pose la question, est-ce qu'à terme, vous donnez vraiment le choix au gouvernement? Parce que peut-être qu'aujourd'hui, un gouvernement va accepter, demain le gouvernement Y va accepter, après-demain le gouvernement Z. Donc finalement, c'est une façon de pousser tout le monde à aller dans ça. Donc, je ne sais pas, c'est pourquoi je me dis, la question, est-ce qu'aujourd'hui, c'est vraiment, vous n'êtes pas en train de pousser le gouvernement à aller vers ça, en disant que vous donnez le consentement, mais quand on regarde, à regarder de près, à terme, c'est qu'ils n'auront pas le choix. Voilà. Ok.
Merci. Et je voudrais rejoindre mon camarade en vous encourageant à trouver le mécanisme qui amène le gouvernement à être transparent. Puisque dans votre slide là, vous avez mis BAD, ouvert et transparent. Nous sommes dans un monde où tout le monde est appelé à être transparent. Et même les pays développés, G20 et autres, obligent leurs membres à être transparents. C'est un début. Prenez votre courage à deux mains. Les gouvernements sont obligés d'être transparents. Merci.
Ok. Merci bien. Moi, mes préoccupations étaient prises en charge fondamentalement par le président ghanéen de Ghana. Parce qu'à ce niveau, ça peut se poser des sérieux problèmes si on ne fait pas attention à ce niveau-là. Ça m'amène à me demander si la politique a été élaborée de façon participative. Voilà. Parce que cette question aurait pu être soulevée en ce temps-là, je pense.
Donc, merci. Moi également, donc, c'est quelques observations que j'aimerais porter à la connaissance des participants. C'est surtout sur la diffusion là, de certains documents. Pour le rapport d'évaluation des projets, donc, on peut très bien comprendre qu'il y ait une diffusion simultanée, mais pas de diffusion avant l'approbation, puisqu'au moment où on donne au conseil d'administration pour l'approbation, on peut très bien mettre ça aussi à la connaissance du public. Mais pour ce qui est de certains rapports, comme surtout le rapport d'audit et l'aide-mémoire, moi je préfère que il faut que les réserves soient levées avant qu'il y ait une diffusion, parce que ça peut porter à confusion et avoir peut-être surtout à montrer du doigt en cas de défaillance, surtout les organes d'exécution du projet, peut-être pour certaines incompréhensions qui ont été mises dans le rapport. On peut très bien, avec la déformation de l'information, grossir ça et créer des problèmes qui n'existent pas. Moi, je pense qu'il faut laisser que les réserves soient levées par l'organe d'exécution ou l'administration, puisque généralement, là-bas, quand on envoie une première mouture, fait des observations, s'il y a des réserves qui sont là, on lève ça, et à partir de là, peut-être on peut le rendre public. Je pense qu'il serait plus convenable dans ces conditions-là. Voilà ce que j'ai à dire.
Oui. Merci. En fait, je voudrais intervenir sur la question des aides-mémoires. Je crois qu'à ce niveau, il faut distinguer deux types d'aides-mémoires. Le premier type, c'est, comme l'ont dit déjà certains, c'est l'aide-mémoire qui commence avec le processus d'un nouveau projet. Là, on attend l'approbation du projet avant de balancer ça, avant de diffuser. Mais quant à l'aide-mémoire des supervisions périodiques des projets, je crois que là, l'aide-mémoire a été signée. Et l'unité de gestion et le représentant du ministère du Plan, ils ont été d'accord du contenu. Et le représentant du gouvernement a signé, la partie le chef de mission a signé. Et une partie de l'aide-mémoire dit, l'aide-mémoire ne sera qu'applicable après avoir l'approbation de la BAD. Donc, arrivé là-bas, la BAD nous envoie un courrier pour relever les recommandations, pour dire, donc ça là, après ça cette aide-mémoire peut être diffusée parce qu'il n'y a plus rien On a caché parce que les deux parties sont entendues. Ils ont signé. L'unité de gestion a été impliquée dans la supervision de fond en comble. On a fait une restitution et ce n'est qu'à la suite de la restitution que le représentant du gouvernement a posé sa signature. Donc dans ce cas, il n'y a pas de problème quant à la diffusion. Merci.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, concerning the aid memoir, you expressed aid memoir concerning the bank's role in this. Now, when the role becomes a health